Hey, Mrs. Spatola here. Today we're going to be looking at lessons 3 and 4, divisibility rules and number tricks. How can numbers be tested for divisibility? Well, what is divisibility? When we talk about divisibility, what does that actually mean? Well, when we talk about divisibility, divisibility is when we look at a number and we can determine if another number can go into it. Certain times it's easier to tell if one number can be divided into a number, and that's the purpose of today's lesson, so that even with a calculator, we can look at a number and decide which numbers can actually be divided into it. But before we do that, let's take a look at our do now. This do now, I can guarantee you, will show up either on your next quiz or your next unit test, so I would definitely make sure that you know how to do it. Let's take a look. It says Danny earns $12.67 an hour. About, there's that key word. When we see the word about, that does mean round first. That was actually a test question in our last unit test. Round first, okay, the word about. About how much money does he earn when he works 7 5/10 hours? Well, one of the key things about rounding numbers is that you have to round both numbers. If there were 3 numbers in the problem, you would round all 3. So the first thing we're going to look at is he earns $12.67 an hour. $12.67 an hour. And he works 7 5/10 hours. So when we look at this, we want to figure out, does Danny want to earn more money than $12.67 or less money? And of course, the answer is Danny wants to earn more money. So when we think about that in terms of operations, are we going to multiply or add? That's how numbers get bigger, so that's what we want to look at. So in this case here, we think, so he's working $12.67, which is about how much for 1 hour? If I look at my numbers and I round to the nearest dollar, I'm going to get 13. And if I look at 7 5/10 and I round that to the nearest whole number, I see that I get 8. So if I look at these, if I'm making $13 for 1 hour, how much would I make for 8 hours? Obviously, then the operation becomes multiply. So basically all you have to do is multiply those two numbers. And remember, you can always use your calculator to help you check. And your final answer would be $104. By the way, there is a symbol that looks like this. It looks like an equal sign, but it's a little squiggly. That means about. So Danny would earn about $104. That would be the final answer for that one. Hopefully you watched the video, the music video that I posted along with this lesson, one of those catchy tunes about divisibility. And it actually has the rules in there, and it's a lot of fun to watch through. But once you complete this lesson, go back and watch that video again if you have time. It definitely makes more sense. So let's check out this thing called divisibility rules. Boys and girls, these are the most common divisibility rules. There are numbers for divisibility rules for almost all numbers. They get a little more involved, but we're going to focus on the most common. The first one we're going to look at is going to be the number 2. So a number is divisible by 2 if the last digit, the last number, is even, so that it ends in a 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. So what does that look like with examples? So we have 2 columns here. As we're doing this lesson, let me backtrack a little. It says a number is divisible by, and then it gives the actual, a number is divisible by, and then it gives the actual numbers going down here in the column. And then across, divisible, these are numbers that are divisible going down this column here, and then not divisible. So it gives an example of numbers that would work and numbers that would not work. So for the number 2, it says if the last digit is even and ends in either a 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8, then the number is divisible by 2. Well, let's take a look at this number. And you could have your calculator out for this. It'll save a lot of time. If the number ends, in this case here, 3,978, it does end in an 8. Therefore, that number is divisible by 2. So if you did the long division, or if you go ahead and pump this number into your calculator, you will see that 2 goes into this number evenly. And that's what we talk about when we say divisible. It means that one number can go into another evenly with no remainders. Okay? If we look at the not divisible column, 4,975, that ends in the number 5. Therefore, the number 2 would not be divided into this number evenly. There would be a remainder. So therefore, it is not divisible. Let's take a look at the next one. The next number is the number 3. If the sum of the digits is divisible by 3, then that number is divisible by 3. So what exactly does that mean, if the sum of the digits is divisible by 3? Well, let's look at the first example. We have 315. Sometimes what we're going to do is, whatever the rule is, we have to look at the number carefully. So this number is 315, and it's telling me it is in the divisible column, so it's telling me that 3 can evenly go into it. So that means the sum of the digits. So if I break apart 315 and I add 3 plus 1 plus 5, the sum of the digits is equal to 9. Now, is 3 a number that can go into 9 evenly? If the answer is yes, that means that 3 can be divided into that. So if you take a minute right now, put 315 divided by 3 in your calculator, you will see that you get an even answer. So yes, it is. That is the rule. That's one of the cool tricks. If we look at 139, we would see 1 plus 3 plus 9 gets us a sum of 9, 10. It gets us a sum of 13. So the answer would be no, it is not. And if you put 139 into your calculator and you divide that by 3, you would see that there is a remainder. Therefore, 139 is not divisible by 3. These are pretty cool. The 3 divisibility rule does show up a lot. Okay, so this shows up a lot, the 2 shows up a lot, and we'll keep going. Okay, look at number 4. Look at the next one. If we look at 4, it says, if the last two digits form a number divisible by 4, then that number is divisible by 4. So let's take a look at the examples. 8,512. We look at the last 2 numbers, the rule says, and a lot of rule following. In math, boys and girls, a lot of direction following. So in this particular one, there's going to be a lot of directions, and you're going to have to refer back to the divisibility rule chart. The number 8,512 has the last 2 digits of 12. Is 12 a number divisible by 4? Can 4 go into 12 evenly? The answer is yes. Okay? Look at the number 18, 7,518. Is 4 a number that goes into 18 evenly? The answer is no. Therefore, that number would not be divisible by 4. So again, the rule for 4 is if the last 2 digits form a number divisible by 4. Let's look at the next one. If the last digit is 0 or 5, then that number is divisible by 5. So a number is divisible by 5 if the last digit is a 0 or a 5. So let's take a look. 14,975, it ends in a 5. Therefore, is that number divisible by 5? The answer is yes, it is. And you can always check it with your calculator. Look at the next one, 10,978. That number ends in 8. Will, according to the divisibility rules, will that number be divisible by 5? The answer is no. Let's look at the next one, 6. This one is a little bit tricky. This one says here, if the number is divisible by both 2 and 3, that number is divisible by 6. So we have, for this one here, for the 6th rule, we have 2 rules that we have to follow if the number is divisible by both 2 and 3. So that means that if it's just divisible by 2 and not 3, that number is not divisible by 6. So let's look at the number 48. So if I have to go back and look at my rules, the number 48, in order for a number to be divisible by 2, I know if I look back at my rule, the last digit has to be an even number. So is this an even number, 48? The answer is yes. So is it divisible by 2? The answer is yes. Now, what is the rule for 3? For 3, it says if the sum of the digits is divisible by 3. So now I want to see if this is divisible by 3. So I would say 4 plus 8 is 12. Is that number divisible by 3? Is 12 divisible by 3? The answer is yes. So therefore, this would be divisible by 6. So it's a yes for divisible by 6. Okay, let's look at the next example. The next example is 20. So if I look at the number 20 and I say, okay, I know in order for this to be divisible by 6, it has to be divisible by both 2 and 3. So it ends in 0. So is this number divisible by 2? It ends in a 0. The answer is yes. Now, 2 plus 0. And I need to find out if that's divisible by 3. Is the number 2, the sum would be when you add them together, is the number 2 divisible by 3? The answer is no. Therefore, it is not divisible by 6. Remember, in order for a number to be divisible by 6, it has to be divisible by both 2 and 3. Okay, one more time, it has to be divisible by both 2 and 3. Next one, for number 9, if a number is divisible by 9, if the sum of the digits is divisible by 9. Again, like the 3s, what we have to do is look at each number separately. So the first example is 711. So what we would do is break that apart and say the sum of the digits. So we would say 7 plus 1 plus 1. Are those digits, when added together, divisible by 9? So the sum of the digits is 9. Does everybody see how we got that? 7 plus 1 plus 1. Remember, these are number tricks. They're not really rules, and it's just a way for you to look at a number and determine, can that number be divided by a certain number? So here we have 7 plus 1 plus 1. The sum is 9. Therefore, is 9 divided by 9? Yes, it goes in evenly. Therefore, the number 711 is divisible by 9. Now let's look at the next one. The next number is 93. So if I were to look at this number 93, I would see that 93, the sum of the digits for that number, 9 plus 3, is equal to 12. So 9 plus 3 is equal to 12. Would 12 be divisible by 9 evenly? The answer is no. So that's why. So those are examples. And the last one, everybody's favorite. Now you must remember this one. If the last digit is a 0, that means that that number is divisible. That means that that number is divisible by 10. Let's look at the example. 15,990. It ends in a 0. Is that number divisible by 10? The answer is yes. And if we look at the one next to it, 10,536, it ends in a 6. Can 10 be divided into that number equally? Well, it does not end in a 0. Therefore, the answer is no. On page 58, you're going to use the chart. Notice I wrote it on the top. You're going to use the chart on the previous page, page 57, to help you. Okay, so you're going to use the chart on page 57 to help you to complete this page here. I'll do a few with you, and then you're going to do some practice on your own. All righty, let's take a look. So the number 15, what you're going to be expected to do, you're going to look at the number 15, and you're going to decide which numbers it's divisible by. And what you're going to do is go number by number and use the chart on the previous page to figure out if it's divisible by each number or not. So let's look at the first one. The number 15. Is it divisible by 2? So we're going to look at the 2. Does it end in an even number? 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8? The answer is no. So it is not divisible by 2. Now, is it divisible by 3? So the number is 15, and if you look at the rule, it says if the sum of the digits is divisible by 3, then that number is divisible by 3. So if it's 15, I'm going to do a little work here. 1 plus 5 is equal to 6. So is the number 6 divisible by 3? The answer is yes. So 3 is. You would circle it because the directions at the top say circle the numbers that the first one is divisible by. Now let's look at the number 4. So there's nothing to do, nothing for number 4. There's 15. Is 15 divisible by 4? The answer is no, so that's a negative. 5, does it end in a 0 or a 5? The answer is yes, so 15 is divisible by 5. How about the number 6? Can 6 go into, is it divisible by 2 or 3? The answer is no. Also, if you know your facts, you'll know that 15 is not a multiple of 6, so we'll say no. Same thing with 9. Okay, the sum of the digits, if you add the digits together, 1 plus 5 is 6, and 6 is not a number divisible by 9, and it does not end in a 0. Alrighty, let's try the next one, 27. Let's go through it again. So is 27 a number divisible by 2? The answer is no. It does not end in a 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. Is it divisible by 3? Well, let's add the sum of the digits together. 2 plus 7 equals 9. Is 9 divisible by 3 evenly? The answer is yes, so you would circle it. 4. You would know your facts. 27 is not divisible by 4. Is it divisible by 5? The answer is no. Why? Because it does not end in a 0 or a 5. Is it divisible by 6? The answer is no. Why? Because you know your facts, but also it is not a number that is divisible by both 2 and 3. Is it divisible by 9? So let's add 2 plus 7. 2 plus 7 equals 9. Is 9 divisible by 9? The answer is yes. And also, if you know your facts, you know that 9 times 3 is 27, so that's a yes. Is it divisible by 10? The answer is no, because it does not end in a 0. Good. I'll do one more with you, and then you're going to complete this page on your own. 36. 36. Is it divisible by 2? The answer is yes. Why? Because it ends in a 6. Okay, it ends in a 6, so that's a yes. Is 36 divisible by 3? Well, if I break apart and add the sum of the digits, I see 3 plus 6 is equal to 9. Is 9 divisible by 3? The answer is yes, therefore it is divisible by 3. Can 4 go into 36, or is 36 divisible by 4? For the 4s, boys and girls, you really need to know your multiplication facts, or you can simply use your calculator to help you. Is 36 divisible by 4? The answer is yes. 4 times 9 is 36. Is 36 divisible by 5? Does 36 end in a 5 or a 0? The answer is no. Now for the 6s, if you know your facts, you would just simply circle it and say, well, I know 36 divided by 6 is 6, so that's a yes. However, keep in mind for this one, this is where that rule comes into play. If 36 is divisible by both 2 and 3, that means it's automatically divisible by 6. So that's the cool trick, and that's another way that you can see it clearly. Is 9 a number that goes into 36? Well, if I add the sum of the digits, and remember, where am I getting all this information? From the chart on page 57. Is 9 a number that can be divided into 36? Well, if I break it apart and I say 3 plus 6, I see that equals 9. Is 9 divisible by 9? The answer is yes. And if you know your facts, you know that 4 times 9 is 36. So that's a yes also. And lastly, we have 10. Does 36 end in a 0? The answer is no. And there you have your choices. Alrighty, so what you're going to do is take some time and do the rest of this page. You're going to complete this page, and I will put the answers up so that you can check. So please be sure that you complete this, pause the video, because that's how you're going to get better. Practice, practice, practice. And then you'll have a few on the next page that you'll try on your own also that you'll bring into class for tomorrow. There are the answers for the top part. Finish the rest of this page on your own and then complete the few problems that I assigned on the next page. Have a great day.